debate, the honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And today I rise in the chamber to discuss an issue that speaks to the heart of Canadian democracy: the responsible use of public funds, the ethical governance of our institutions, and the accountability of elected officials. The recent scandal surrounding Sustainable Development Technology Canada, SDTC, is not just about mismanagement. It represents a betrayal of the trust Canadians place in their government. This matter is too important to be relegated to committee rooms or buried in bureaucracy. It is the business of this House, the House of Commons, to shine a light on a troubling case and demand answers on behalf of Canadians. The Conservative Party of Canada is unwavering in its commitment to bringing this issue to the forefront because of the problems are deeper and more systematic within the current NDP Liberal coalition government. This is not an isolated case of a single program veering off course. It represents a troubling pattern of governance marked by a blatant disregard for ethical standards. The scandal surrounding Sustainable Development Technology Canada, SDTC, underscores a broader failure to uphold the principles of transparency, accountability, and integrity, principles that are the bedrock of public service and democracy. This pattern is not new. Canadians have seen time and time again how this government prioritizes its political allies over the needs of the people it was elected to serve. Whether it is through mismanagement of public funds, conflicts of interest, or lack of transparency, the actions of this government betray a troubling disregard for the trust placed in it by Canadians. Each new revelation adds to a growing sense that corruption and insider dealings have become the norm, eroding public confidence in the government institutions and creating a sense of disillusionment, frustration, and disappointment amongst the people. Transparency, accountability, and integrity are not mere buzzwords or lofty ideals. They are practical, essential principles, pillars that guide how a government should function. Transparency ensures that the public has access to the information they need to hold their leaders accountable. It allows for Canadians to see how their tax dollars are being spent and whether or those expenditures align with the public interest. Without transparency, the government operates in the shadows, free from scrutiny, and unburdened by the consequences of its actions. Accountability goes hand in hand with transparency. It is a mechanism by which leaders are held responsible for their decisions and actions. In a democratic system, accountability ensures that no one is above the law, and it provides a safeguard against abuse of power. For the government to refuse to release unredacted documents despite a direct order from Parliament is to undermine this critical pillar of democracy. Such behavior sets a dangerous precedent, suggesting that the government is willing to disregard its obligations to the public and to the institution of Parliament itself. Integrity, the third pillar, is about more than following the rules. It's about doing what is right, even when no one's watching. It's about prioritizing the public good over personal gain or political expediency. The scandals that have plagued this government reveal a profound lack of integrity. When public servants approve funding that benefits their own ventures, when conflicts of interest go unchecked, and when leaders refuse to admit fault or take corrective action, they compromise the very foundation of trust upon which governance is built. This is why the Conservative Party Canada is determined to bring this issue to the attention of every Canadian. It is not just about recovering the misused $400 million or addressing the 186 documented conflicts of interest. It's about sending a clear message that the days of unaccountable governance must come to an end. It's about restoring faith in our democratic institutions and proving that elected officials can and will be held to the highest standards of conduct. This moment is an opportunity to reaffirm what good governance looks like. It is a chance to remind Canadians that they deserve better than corruption, secrecy, mismanagement. They deserve a government that respects their hard-earned tax dollars, that governs with honesty and fairness, and holds itself accountable to the people who elected it. The Conservative Party is ready to lead by example, offering Canadians a government that places transparency, accountability, and integrity at the heart of its agenda. This is a commitment. It's a core value that will guide every decision, every policy, and every action. Canadians deserve nothing less than a government they can trust, a government that serves them, not itself. Let's revisit the purpose for which SDTC was established. Launched in 2001, this initiative was intended to position Canada as a leader in clean technology. Its mandate was ambitious but clear: to fund projects that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve air and water quality, and promote sustainable resource use. By supporting early-stage innovations, SDTC aimed to drive environmental process while fostering economic growth. At its best, SDTC represented the kind of forward-thinking policy Canadians expect from their government. It was instrumental in supporting breakthroughs across various sectors. In the energy sector, it facilitated advancements in renewable energy, energy storage, and efficiency. In agriculture, it championed projects that improved sustainability, projects that reduced emissions, and conserved water. In transportation, it promoted innovations that reduced the carbon footprint of public transit and supported the transition of electric mobility. Beyond providing the funding, SDTC acted as a bridge between diverse stakeholders, industry, academia, researchers, and government agencies. By fostering collaboration, it accelerated the development and commercialization of technologies that benefited not just Canada, but the global community. This collaborative approach was essential for turning ambitious ideas into practical solutions. However, under this government's watch, SDTC has strayed far from its noble purpose. Instead of being a model of innovation and environmental stewardship, it has become a glaring example of mismanagement and ethical lapses. The Auditor General's recent findings revealing a shocking misuse of nearly $400 million in taxpayer funds.
Stop the honourable member. Can we check the noise in the atrium, please? It's becoming very loud. Thank you. The honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Auditor General's recent findings reveal a shocking misuse of nearly $400 million in taxpayer funds. This is not merely an administrative failure. It is an ethical crisis that demands immediate action. The Auditor General's report details a pattern of conflicts of interest that would be unacceptable in any organization, let alone one funded by public taxpayers' money. Of the $400 million allocated, $334 million went to projects linked to board members with clear conflicts of interest. 9 board members were implicated in a staggering 186 conflicts, using their positions to approve funding for projects that directly benefited themselves or their associates. One particularly shocking case involved a board member who at the same time ran a venture capital firm. This individual approved $114 million in funding for companies her firm had previously invested in, directly enriching herself and her business. Such blatant self-dealing is not only unethical, but undermines public confidence in the very institutions designed to serve the public good. The systematic nature of these abuses is further underscored by the Auditor General's findings. Of the 405 transactions approved by SDTC's board over 5 years, the Auditor General reviewed 226. Of these, 82% involved conflicts of interest. 82% of 226 that were reviewed. This staggering feature reveals the governance structure riddled with ethical lapse and lack of oversight. The mismanagement does not stop there. The Auditor General found that $58 million was allocated to projects that did not meet the program's qualifying criteria. These funds were dispersed without proper contribution agreements, a clear indication of administrative negligence. The Liberals government's industry minister tasked with oversight of SDTC failed to implement the necessary checks and balances. This oversight failure enabled nearly $500 million to be mismanaged. When confronted with these filings, the government's response was not to accept accountability or implement corrective measures. Instead, it chose to obstruct efforts to uncover the truth. Despite a parliamentary order requiring the release of unredacted documents related to SDTC, the government has refused to comply. Departments such as Finance Canada, Innovation, Science and Economic Development, and the Treasury Board Secretariat have withheld critical information, either redacting key details or refusing to produce the documents entirely. This refusal is not just an administrative oversight. It is a direct challenge to parliamentary authority and, by extension, to the Canadian people. The Speaker of the House has ruled that the government's actions violate parliamentary privilege, yet the obstruction persists, raising serious questions about this government's commitment to transparency and accountability. The consequences of this scandal are not limited to the financial mismanagement of SDTC. They extend to the broader economic and social challenges facing Canadians today. The misuse of public funds comes at a time when families are struggling to make ends meet. Inflation has driven up the cost of living, making it harder for Canadians to afford basic necessities such as food and housing. The cost of groceries has skyrocketed, with the average family expected to spend an additional $700 this year compared to 2023. Food insecurity is on the rise, with Stats Canada reporting an increase from 11.6% in 2018 to 15.6% in 2022. Visits to the food banks have surged by 50% since 2021, highlighting the growing number of Canadians who cannot afford to feed their families. The Cranbrook Food Bank has had so many people needing the services. They used to provide 3 bags of groceries. Now, with the increase in demand, huge numbers of families and individuals needing help, they can only hand out 1 bag. Housing affordability has reached the crisis point. Families are living in cars because they cannot afford rent. And young Canadians are staying at home longer because they cannot afford to buy a house. Rising crime rates add to the sense of insecurity and frustration felt by many communities. These challenges are amplified by the government's policies. The carbon tax, for example, has increased costs across the supply chain, affecting farmers, ranchers, truckers, and consumers alike. Economists have warned that this tax imposes a significant burden on families already struggling with inflation. Meanwhile, the inflationary spending by the government has driven up prices across the board, eroding the purchasing power of Canadian households. The $400 million misused in this scandal could have been directed towards addressing these pressing issues. It could have funded affordable housing projects, supported food security initiatives, or enhanced public safety programs. Instead, it was squandered on projects that served the interest of a privileged few, enriching Liberal insiders at the expense of ordinary Canadians. This scandal is not just about money, it's about trust. Canadians expect their government to act in their best interests, to manage public funds responsibly, and to uphold the highest ethical standards. When those expectations are not met, the very foundation of our democracy is called into question. The Conservative Party of Canada believes in a different approach, We believe in transparency, accountability, and fiscal responsibility. Canadians deserve a government that respects their tax dollars and invests them wisely. They deserve leaders who prioritize their needs over political self-interest. The refusal to release the SDTC documents is not just a bureaucratic failure, it is a morale failure. It delays justice, obstructs accountability, and prevents Parliament from addressing the real issue that affect Canadians. Parliament must act decisively to address the systematic issues that allow this scandal to occur. The government must comply with the Speaker's order and release the unredacted documents related to SDTC. Canadians are watching closely, and they expect our elected officials, elected representatives, to rise to the occasion. The call for transparency and accountability is not about political parties or ideological divides. It transcends partisanship because it speaks to the very essence of good governance. These principles form the foundation of a healthy democracy and are critical to maintaining the trust between citizens and those they elect to serve. When public trust is undermined, so too is the legitimacy of our democratic institutions, making the restoration of that trust not only necessary, but urgent. In this chamber, we hold a profound responsibility, a responsibility to act in the best interests of people who have entrusted us with their votes. This means ensuring that every dollar of public money is allocated ethically, spent effectively, and accounted for transparently. It means recognizing that the people of Canada deserve more than vague assurances and cloudy processes. They deserve a government that is forthright, principled, and unafraid to confront its own failures. The issue before us is not simply about numbers or stats. It's about values. Mismanagement of public funds erodes more than just the financial health of our nation. It erodes confidence in the very system that is meant to serve the public. When scandals emerge like those surrounding the Sustainable Development Technology Canada, they do more than waste resources. They weaken the belief that the government operates in the interests of all Canadians, not just a select few. The House must rise to meet this moment by reaffirming its unwavering commitment to transparency and accountability. These are not optional virtues. They are the cornerstones of democracy. Without them, the ties that bind citizens to their government fray, leaving the space for cynicism, disengagement to take root. Canadians must see that their representatives are united in their determination to uphold these principles, no matter how difficult or politically inconvenient it may be. The people of Canada are looking to us to restore trust, and trust cannot be demanded, it must be earned. It requires us to demand answers when questions arise, to push for the investigations when irregularities are discovered, and to ensure consequences for those who express outrage. We must deliver outcomes. That is what accountability looks like, and that is what the people of Canada deserve. By taking a firm stand now, we can demonstrate that Canada's democracy is resilient. It is strong enough to withstand scrutiny, bold enough to demand answers, and principled enough to hold even the most powerful leaders accountable. The strength is not given. It reflects the collective will of this House to act in the interests of the nation rather than the interests of political expediency. This moment is an opportunity to prove our institutions are worthy of the trust placed in them. It is a chance to reaffirm the democratic values that define us as a nation and show Canadians that their voices matter. This House must seize the opportunity not just to address the issue at hand, but send a broader message that the integrity of our democracy is non-negotiable. As parliamentarians, we have a duty to protect and uphold the principles that underpin democracy. This is not about just recovering lost funds or addressing specific incidents of wrongdoing. It's about preserving the integrity of our system of governance for generations to come. Let us take a moment to recommit ourselves to that duty and show Canadians we're worthy of their trust. In July 10th, this elected House, representing of the wills of Canadians, ordered the government to release all relevant documents tied to the Green Slush Fund. That deadline has come and gone. 166 days later, we are still waiting. This blatant disregard for parliamentary orders is how little respect the Liberal government has for the institution. Canadians deserve transparency and accountability. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Nepean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member referred to broader economic and social changes. He also referenced to the rents. I would like to ask him, with the inflation falling to 2%, with the interest rates getting cut 4 times, the rents in places like Toronto and Vancouver falling by over 9% year over year, and the member also talked about affordable housing. I also want to get his comments on the Housing Accelerator Fund, whether he is in support of it even now.
You should have stayed. The honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the member for the question. I can say that when I go back to Kootenay, Columbia, when I talk to the people of Kootenay, Columbia, they cannot afford to buy groceries. So I'm not too sure where that member is shopping or where they're getting their prices, but prices have gone up so much they cannot afford to buy everything they need. And we actually need to start to do something about that. And right now we're not doing anything other than spending money that we don't have.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Barrie Easton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And if anything that this scandal has taught us is that the players are going to play. The fakers are going to fake. And that this government cannot shake this scandal off. And there's a reason why this scandal is so profoundly scandalous, Madam Speaker, and that's because Canadians are impoverished. They're finding it hard for their groceries, and yet Liberal connected insiders and cronies are benefiting to the tune, in this case, of $400 million and more in the past. Would the honourable member not agree that that just can't be the case, and we have to get to the bottom of this?
Honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the member for his great question. And yeah, absolutely correct. What we're talking about here is $400 million, 186 ethical violations, yet from across the road, we're talking historical issues or things that are not even relevant to the $400 million. That $400 million, if that was sent to Kootenay, Columbia, imagine what we could do with that money, how we could help people. We need to find out where that money went to, and all of the ethical violations are followed up through an investigation so that we don't have this happen again.
Comments, the honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
My colleague and friend from Kootenay, Columbia, for his well-presented speech. And one of the words that he hit on quite extensively was the word trust. And he spoke about it throughout his 20-minute speech quite extensively. And the reality is that Canadians throughout this country have lost the trust in this government. And part of what this government is trying to do is to basically distract people to truly understanding what it is. Because $400 million is not chump change. It's a lot of money, and it affects Canadians all throughout this country, and especially in his riding. And I'm wondering if the member would mind commenting again on how, in showing the fact that we're calling people out on this trust issue, it will bring that trust and faith and consistency back to Canadians.
The honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia, short answer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And trust is something that has to be earned. And that is what is not happening in this government today. You have to earn trust by your actions. When you're not accountable and you're not giving the unredacted documents that we've asked for this $400 million, that is telling Canadians that you don't care. That where is it? Why are they not unredacted? What's happened to our government when they're not producing those documents? Thank you, Madam Speaker.